Karen's obsession with control had now descended into relentless pettiness and escalation. After repeatedly failing to assert authority through intimidation, false claims, and even destruction, she had turned her attention to smaller, more insidious acts of harassment. She began deliberately knocking over my trash cans, convinced that minor annoyances would provoke compliance, submission, and fear. She imagined that small acts of disruption would intimidate me, that petty aggression would erode my resolve, but she had once again gravely miscalculated. I noticed the pattern almost immediately. Surveillance cameras had captured every movement, every knock, every gesture. Her previous attempts to manipulate, intimidate, and escalate had taught me to anticipate her next moves with precision. While she saw her actions as clever, they were entirely predictable. I decided that rather than react impulsively, I would craft a response that combined strategy, creativity, and irreversible consequences. Karen was about to discover that her minor provocations were about to backfire spectacularly. The following day, I installed a new trash system, one that appeared ordinary but was designed to ensure her repeated interference would have unexpected results. Hidden cameras, secure latches, and an element of surprise were all integrated seamlessly. Karen, assuming her habitual actions would yield predictable results, returned with the same confident swagger, ready to knock over my cans once more. She didn't realize that the environment had been carefully prepared to make her next move entirely counterproductive. As she reached for the first can, I observed her every motion from a distance. At the precise moment she tipped it over, a mechanism I had installed gently, but unmistakably, redirected her own effort back onto her. The can toppled, and in the ensuing confusion, her foot became entangled with the base, causing her to stumble without serious harm but with maximum humiliation. The cameras captured the entire scene, her entitled attempt at petty harassment literally backfiring in real time. Karen's reaction was a mixture of shock, embarrassment, and rising fury. She had assumed that minor acts of intimidation would be invisible, effective, and force compliance. But now she was on display, her failure both documented and observed by anyone watching the footage. The neighbors, some of whom had previously witnessed her more dramatic escalations, were now beginning to see a pattern of predictable entitlement, recklessness, and self-defeating behavior. Determined to recover her perceived authority, Karen attempted to escalate verbally, shouting threats and demanding explanations. But her words, like her actions, had no effect. Every claim she made was anticipated, countered, and documented. Her repeated attempts to assert control through pettiness had been neutralized by foresight, planning, and strategy. Each failure further diminished her credibility, exposing her as someone whose entitlement consistently collided with preparation and lost. By mid-afternoon, Karen was flustered, humiliated, and retreating. The petty acts of knocking over trash cans, intended to provoke frustration or fear, had become a public spectacle of her incompetence. Her repeated overreach, her delusions of authority, and her escalating entitlement were now clearly visible. Her attempts to dominate, manipulate, and intimidate were being systematically dismantled, leaving her reputation in tatters and her social influence weakened. By evening, Karen had been left to contemplate yet another spectacular failure. Her obsession with control, escalating from intimidation to harassment, had once again collided with preparation, strategy, and law. Every action she had taken had been anticipated, countered, and recorded. Her repeated pattern of entitlement leading to failure had become undeniable. The saga continued, but Karen's petty escalation had transformed into a public demonstration of her predictable and self-inflicted humiliation. Karen had assumed that small, targeted acts of harassment could undermine me, but reality had intervened. Her entitlement, unchecked by foresight, preparation, or legal knowledge, had produced a spectacle of humiliation and a permanent record of her repeated miscalculations. The neighborhood, authorities, and even her own HOA members could now see clearly. Entitlement without strategy, law, or preparation always ends in spectacular failure. Her obsession with control had made her predictable, and predictability in the wrong hands is always a weakness.